And the match has started. We'll be going into that shortly.
I think we are into it. It's just this doesn't show
it pops up on there.
Does it show that?
Yeah, I just don't know if there's a delay or what. So we have to be funny for just a little bit longer.
Okay, there it is.
And here we are into the game. Tyga is the yellow Terran in the top left, and Fuzzy is the red Zerg in the top right. And unfortunately, I don't really know anything about either of these players.
I've seen them both. Fuzzy, I believe.
Is he NRG Fuzzy?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Extremely mannered, a fun Zerg. And then Tyga, I've seen around. I did not know he was actually Canadian, but I think he dates back to even early beta, maybe Brood War.
Really?
I think I've seen this guy a lot.
Yeah, actually, now that you mentioned it, Fuzzy, I actually played Fuzzy in one of the MLG Arena qualifiers, the same one that Tubby the Fat played Chris in.
Okay.
So I have played him before.
What were your thoughts about him?
It was nice to get to play him.
Very good.
He's not the best player, but he did qualify for the WCS Canada National Finals. So
Absolutely.
that's a pretty big step. And
that's kind of a storyline about WCS, by the way. Like,
this is a way for a lot of players to start getting more recognition, get to a bigger stage. Yeah.
A lot of people for all of StarCraft 2 have talked about how invitationals are basically keeping, the rich get richer. It privileges the big names. And that's absolutely valid. That's absolutely true. So a system like a WCS that basically says, hey, we're not going to jump into like an MLG open bracket. That's freaking hard to compete in.
Yeah.
If you're a no-name, your best bet is to beat a good player and then get recognition for that, because you're not going to do that 5 or 6 times usually. But in a WCS system, you can get on that big stage. Like right now, there's thousands of people watching Tyga versus Fuzzy, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely, and the best part about it is the competition grows as you get past each stage. Like the national level, for most countries, that's not a huge deal, and even below that, you have the qualifiers that lead into it, which is even lower skilled competition. At every stage, it gets harder and harder. You get up to national, and then international, and then eventually global. So you can prove yourself all the way through if you actually are that good, but either way, you get to keep going until you've shown everything you have, which is really great for new players who are trying to make a name for themselves.
And again, Greg and I, of course, have done a lot of shows. We're very publicized figures. We talk about this a lot. We've been very critical of Blizzard. We said, it's nice that LoL is getting those gigantic tournaments, and Blizzard's been a little bit on the backstage, but WCS is their response. And if WCS is their response, it's like the Zoolander Blue Steel Gaze, man. They've done it. They nailed it. It is here. I'm proud to say that WCS is freaking fantastic.
Absolutely.
At all stages, too. There's like a Nordic final between some of the best in all of Europe. Super excited about that. China's going on right now. Nobody knows anything about those players, but they're excited.
Nobody ever gets to see China, but every once in a while they'll show up to a tournament and do really well. Zigwe at WCG, I believe he got second place. He actually put a little bit of pressure on MVP in the finals even, and no one had ever heard of him before. So this is a great way to get exposed to a lot of players you'll just never see otherwise,
I actually want to
no matter how good they are.
Zigwe might have won a fairly recent Chinese tournament over a few Korean players that were invited. If it wasn't Zigwe, it was a Chinese player. I'm trying to... It might have been Max Said, actually.
Yeah, he's another player who's been around. I think he was a War 3 pro. I'm not entirely sure. They are just so insular. It's hard to know what's going on. And actually, an interesting little tactic here from Tyga. This is something I know QXC does a lot. DDE does a lot as well. This is in such a position that there's no way to have a spine crawler up here to hit it. And you don't get... With the new Queen styles, you don't get quick circling speed, you don't get quick roaches, you don't get anything that can really kill that bunker. And it's in such a position that you can't really spread creep down here. It'll just shoot down the tumors. So that's just a really, really smart, efficient way to control the creep spread that's become pretty ubiquitous from Zerg players right now.
I'm so attracted to this move. I dare I say, it's like reminding me of Mary's niece. Like, this is... I don't like it against gas openings.
Very, very,
I know.
Yes,
I was wondering if I shouldn't be using that right now. Look at this. He's going to get the Overlord. Maybe not.
You could get a Queen if Fuzzy's not careful. There's no transfuse there. There's no support units. He's not even building any support units. Oh, a little sloppy.
Losing the Marines a little silly. Little silly.
That was unnecessary. But Tyga realizing this, and he's actually, or pardon me, Fuzzy realizing this, he's actually forced to put down the double gas. He knows he's not going to be able to take a quick third and just push out his creep like he wants to. Like
but it's all out of sync, too. That was not his original plan. That's not what he wanted to do.
And you can see he's putting down this macro hedge. That's not, Zerg just doesn't do that. You don't put down a macro hedge in your main usually.
Single Marine kills an SCV, though. It's not the biggest deal, but it's also really bad.
That's also really uncomfortable on this stage. If these players are nervous, if Tyga is nervous, if he's not used to offline competition, something like that happens and it kind of rattles you. It's not practically the biggest deal, but it feels really uncomfortable, and it can just mess with your mindset.
And these creep tumors are getting delayed, but we do see they are circumventing the radius of the bunker and going around it.
You can wrap around, but you're not going to have creep out in this area, which is where a lot of attacks come in, where it's really important to have the creep.
Nice little base of operations, too, for these Hellions coming up behind this. As far as tactics go, we see 3 barracks, a 3rd command center, and now the tech lab already on the factory. This is pretty standard play beyond the opening from Tyga. And I think, actually, as I rationalize this, part of the reason why I like this opening from Tyga so much is it really reminds me of like a photon cannon block, something that I do against Zergs a lot. It is an investment. It does prolong a lot of your own macro and your own tech to a certain extent, but one of the reasons why I do it so much is because I feel like there's some Zergs that are very uncomfortable having their early game thrown off.
Definitely.
And it has the potential to send huge ripples throughout the game. Like, we have to see now how Fuzzy wants to react in this highly, like, this is loser bracket round 1. Guess what? You lose here, you're done. You're out of the tournament.
Out 0-2, which obviously no one wants. You got to get to the top 10 to get a trip to the to the NA finals.
Yep.
So no one wants to lose this early on. Everything is on the line here, and if making your opponent uncomfortable is half the battle in competition matches, that's almost as important as actually just being better than them. And we can see Fuzzy, he's not doing well. He wants that 3rd hatchery to be down at a 3rd base. He doesn't want to go lair this fast. He doesn't want to be, just investing all this stuff. Now he's forced to go 2-base Spire, but late enough that it's not going to do any damage. So he's just going to kind of have muted once turret should already be out. It's a really uncomfortable position for him. A big Zerglings round does come out and take that bunker out, but really just a bunker and a couple of Marines, not a big investment at all. And it's already done so much damage in terms of delaying Fuzzy.
As we can see here, again, as Greg said, the way the matchup is taking shape now, we have 2-base Muta. A lot of Zerglings are coming out. Siege mode has completed, so there's going to be no potential for a Zergling bust, if you will. Yeah. And these are well upgraded bio. We have double engineering bay, both a part of the wall. So I'm going to ask Greg in a moment here how he thinks about that. But I do like this standard play coming out from the Terran. Lots of barracks. It is going to be 5, so I feel like it'll be a push as opposed to kind of slow turtly mech. And one thing to kind of keep your eye on, as we saw in the previous match that we broadcast, was do the Mutas do damage to the mineral line? A couple of missile turrets will shut that down, but if there's no missile turrets, they're going to do damage. Now, Greg, what do you think of the wall in double engineering bay, just depots? Is that safe? Is that fine?
I was actually going to talk about that a bit. Tyga's playing this really, really smart. We saw he only went 2 Hellions before switching over to tank production, and that's because that bunker denies a 3rd base. It forces you to go gas, and more often than not, when Zerg goes gas right now, it turns into a Roach Bane bust or some kind of attack. So he got siege mode immediately, and he put 2 thick buildings in his walling. Okay. So he was preparing for that. It leaves them a little bit exposed as we go on into the game, but more often than not, if Zerg is actually attacking effectively into this area in the mid-game, you're already in a lot of trouble as Terran, and losing a couple upgrades is the least of your worries.
3 missile turrets do go up for Tyga in that main mineral line, and it's almost like Brood War-esque. It's a little bit of a half concave, just shielding the mineral line from any kind of Muta harass. I really like that. One of the main things that Zergs need to kind of realize, or our young Zerg viewers at home, is that missile turrets standing by themselves, they're pretty okay, especially when they're repaired. But if you can kind of link them in terms of their attack radius, that's when they become super powerful. Like, these Mutas are going to show up, be like, oh my goodness, we are not invited here, and then they're going to leave and not even get any damage in it at all.
Yep, one turret just says you have to attack this turret instead of the SCVs for a little while, but a lot of turrets say that if you come in here, you're going to die.
You're going to die.
You can't come in there. And we see the Mutas fly away immediately. Fuzzy, very intelligently, he is droning up. He's not overcommitting to units in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. One thing I really don't like about this style is he's only getting the melee weapon upgrades. He has a single evolution chamber, and almost without fail, every Zerg style nowadays, ZVT, is double upgrade because 2-2 Zerglings are just so powerful. If you get a timing with 2-2 before 2-2 is finished for the Terran opponent, you can actually just kill them most of the time. So I really dislike that about Fuzzy's play, and we'll also have to see what kind of infestor timing he has here. But he has pure Zerglings in production. He may go for a big Ling Baneling bust, despite the fact that he's only at +1 weapons.
And I want to say, to your point, Greg, that bothers me because
there's so many things. A huge
he's going to get us around here.
If he targets down those Banelings, he does target the Banelings, but some of them still surviving. Just so many units here. But really good position from Tyga. Good control from him here.
Great
this is not going to be effective at all.
And I got to say, one of the reasons why so many Zergs have moved away from this Muta style where you go mass Mutas is if you have one engagement, yeah, okay, you win, but ZVT is a battle of attrition, and Mutas do not do well when they're fighting earlier on in the phase. They don't get that critical mass where they're killing super cost effectively. And if you kind of stay at a low Muta count but don't have something to fall back on, like 2-2 Zergling Baneling, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, the way that people are starting to move back into some Muta styles, but the way they do it is they make a handful of Mutas, and then they make a ridiculous amount of 2-2 Ling Baneling behind it, and then they keep attacking and resupplying on the cheap, efficient Ling Baneling.
Yeah.
Just this is too Muta-centric. The Ling Baneling isn't going to be efficient enough, but another big attack.
Great angle,
here.
though.
Yeah, that was a much better attack there from Fuzzy. Tyga not nearly as well prepared.
And he's saving the Baneling. He's going to slaughter this. The Terran player's in danger despite all his well preparation. The medevac with all the Marines in is getting targeted down. They die. And the Terran standing army is something like 6 Marines, which are being rallied into the Zerg gauntlet of units.
A couple more medevacs taken down as well. All those units are dying. A bunch of SCVs died. This orbital command is running the wrong way. The Mutas are going to be able to chase it down.
I mean, even if it ran the other way, that's it. GG.
Tyga GG's. Wow.
And I'll tell you what, I think what this match encapsulates for me, and obviously I'm not a Zerg or Terran player, so Greg, you'll have to clarify where I'm wrong or right on this. But when I watch TVZ, I feel like I see a lot of matches where Terrans set up very meticulously. They play pretty well, but they make one critical mistake, and because of the speed and the utility of a lot of the Zerg styles, there's no going back. Once you lose those medevacs, once you lose those Marines and you get no tanks to protect you, I feel like you're dead.
As you said, TVZ is very much so a battle of attrition for both sides, but even more so for Terran now. If you lose those tanks, if you lose those medevacs, they're very hard to replace. You only have a couple factories, maybe one starport. So you really just need to keep those alive. And if you do that perfectly, then you end up with a ridiculously powerful push. But if you get caught off guard, off balance just once, everything kind of falls apart for you. Because Mutiling Bane, he's just so quick and so easy to resupply. You can continually put pressure on. And it's much easier for Zerg to control the pace of the game than for the Terran. So Terran really needs to be utterly meticulous at all times with those very powerful units.
So the game is actually already underway, but we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll introduce and talk about how both players are mining minerals. Stay tuned. Be right back.